All right, everybody. Usually this would be an impossibility at this time of year here, but I made it up to my shrine, and looks like nobody's actually been able to find it. Otherwise, I'd expect that it would show signs of human activity, which is usually the idea that delicacy is a forgiving thing. As you can see, I got my triangle still up in position. My little Tanuki kind of warrior. Even some of the paint projects I've done. Leading up to this sort of woodle stake here to my phoenix that I've carved kind of overlooking the valley. But you know, as much as nature could be something that's unpredictable, I feel like if you travel with geometry in mind, then you can always sort of find right angles, which is mostly just the idea that design is sort of something that you can interpret. Design is something that is always there. And it's whether or not you choose to see design or not. But given the circumstances of my world lately, and not even necessarily looking at the circumstances at large, moon looks pretty interesting through this lens. It almost looks like we could peer through space and see it floating there. But every once in a while, I do glance at the clouds and feel like they look like the moon anyways. I almost feel like there's a convergence here. You know, as mysterious as the moon is, clouds are just as misty. Kind of like dust in a way anyways. People are always seeing things in the clouds and believing things are on the moon. Or that they both mean something, you know? And who knows, maybe they do. I mean, realistically with the tides and, you know, it's almost like a cloud is even more of a mysterious thing at that point of being sort of like a reflection, a mirror, you know, almost holding nothing itself, except for when it holds too much. And then the clouds do touch the earth when lightning strikes. Even something as formless as a cloud becomes a force of nature. But I just have felt like, and I have thought that I needed to sort of go somewhere with some grit, kind of my own, just so that I know that I wasn't necessarily favoring some direction so much. You know, I kind of wanted to go in another direction. And you know, if I'm going in all these directions with a sense of work, again, the idea of ease, I think, then becomes taken up with time, and it can be a parallel kind of thing. And then I think decision making becomes the thing that you might try to start faking, because, you know, decisions that you make might actually be very heartfelt and important. I mean, you never really know how relationships are going to go, especially when things are very touchy, and all it takes is, you know, a few wrong actions in the right place, ironically, for you to end up in a different place, almost like you've changed your face. So again, I'm just sort of working with that idea that maybe that all ends up happening with time anyways. You know, maybe some of us do die when things look directly at you, simply killed by a stare. But then, can we truly be said that we're the harm there? But then maybe our decisions are like the clouds. When we've held so much, then we do have a split decision. And even though it doesn't seem so much as lightning could touch, maybe then lightning is sort of like a way, and maybe lightning is actually realistically the little decisions that we have every single day, which then ultimately lead to big things in big ways. So I'm up here, and I just wanted to sort of say something, and I've brought some items because I believe that things mean as much as you sort of make them mean, through sacrifice, through work. You know, then psychologically you take these things in. And I think the more you practice this, then you'll eventually end up with something like this in your life. Like, this is totally me. This is me over, like, this has been up here for like 6 or 7 years, guys. Like, untouched, unfazed. I've made little minor adjustments, you know, the entire way. Like, I blued this leather. That's all from me, from basically creating some concoction, and, you know, found all these rocks within this area. I cleaned everything up first. I was up here and I did it all basically without anyone seeing me, just because I wanted to create something that, you know, was kind of private. My way of, like, you know, saying that I have a place up here on the mountain. You know, so many people admonish the mountain and admonish, you know, the heights of things and whatever else, and I just kind of thought, you know what, like, I'm not gonna let the world, like, tell me that I don't have a place there too. So I kind of did this, you know, under the cover of darkness, and just gathered up all these huge rocks. A lot of them are super, super heavy. I mean, nobody's moving those around except for some pretty big people, you know, realistically. And I think no animals have sort of touched this leather, because I did sort of chemically treat it, you know, with like a lot of different things. That's what blued it and stuff like that too. Gave it that like blue look. Found this sort of lodge pole that I've had buried in there, and I'm super surprised though. It's been a while, a season at least, you know, and my little phoenix is kind of still up there, which I think is pretty cool. It's like if Chuck Norris was like a little totem. Here's Beetlejuice. Star. All surrounded by a mosh pit. But yeah, so let's get to sort of, you know, the ceremony, I guess, a little ceremony I'm gonna have of me kind of offering stuff and just symbolizing work, you know. I believe sacrifice and ceremony is as much as you can make it a repetitive process. The more that you can repeat it, the more that you create sort of an atmosphere, and that sort of thing becomes, you know, really intrinsic to your life and character and stuff. So I can find a good spot. Post up in. It's like right on a trigger, which I kind of like. I like things being hair trigger. Oh, we're gonna get some dragons coming out too, it sounds like. I don't know if that spot's gonna work very good. Maybe this spot? Perfect. It's like at the perfect angle even. All right, so I have a bag of flowers that I've dried out and pressed and having sit in front of a Jesus kind of shrine, just because I think there's no denying Jesus at this point in time in terms of it being a figure recognized by the world. But if that's the case, it's like a roundabout to me. It's like, you know, I can choose to enter it and exit it where I want, and I can sort of use it as a pivot point that the world acknowledges. And you know what I mean? Depending on what I put there, I think that, again, just like all these other ceremonies that I take part in, the more that I can create this repetitive process of cycling and exchanging things in detail, that I can make it sort of mine in a certain way, or I have my version of it, right? Which is maybe the best that we can do in terms of us dealing with the perspective and realities that other people sort of, you know, propagate through this world that we ended up having to sort of deal with, just like, you know, dealing with what we inherit from our ancestors, and things to that extent. But I think that we can almost use it like a good fulcrum at some point in time. We know that it's going to be a steady point, so why not actually use it as a place that we can actually, you know, create some lift off of, you know, right? If we're using all these mechanics correctly, I think that's the ultimate point of anything that's in essence a fulcrum, is basically just to create this idea of lift, you know, which takes certain types of play and whatever, and it's like no one's touched these. It's just like, I mean, I have so many kinds of flowers in here that I've gathered from this mountain from last season. So I was going through all my stuff, and I kind of felt that it was just, you know, it'd work out that way for me to perform a ceremony with all my pretty flowers and ferns and everything like that. So I'm gonna scatter them all over my mount here. And then I have 2 cans. You can almost get a can or a box or a snack of any kind of name nowadays. This Guru Zero energy drink, and sure, you can drink it. Is it my favorite energy drink? No, but it's called Guru. Sometimes the name works more than what it is, you know what I mean? Just in terms of it being like kind of that pivot point kind of thing. It's just like, you know what, I decided, okay, I'm gonna use these as sort of offering fluids to sort of just create that idea, because I think liquid always has the idea of being opposite of air, but it's clean in a certain way, right? So I've got some Guru air here, and as much as, you know, this is an expensive place to, I think the wild is an expensive place to be wild, ironically enough, right? It's something that, you know, you take time to build up enough resources to create a space in which you can actually sort of find something intelligent to bring out of nature. And then in that way, those ideas of ease and relaxing everywhere else just get continually exchanged, kind of like one of those towers of pyramids where you move the rings the entire time, and you just keep doing that over and over and over, and eventually I think you can create a current, you know. And maybe that's the best way to sort of create lift off of those points which everybody sort of acknowledges, you know, in some way of doing that. So I'm gonna put all these on here, and then I'm going to dump my Wild Berry Guru Zero. Somebody liked it. It wasn't my drink, maybe it's somebody else's. Nature is expensive for me right now at this point in time. Maybe it's not for other people. So this is where I'm going to find that grit, that sandpaper in my life, to make sure that I'm not necessarily favoring certain emotions or feelings or shades of light. So yeah. I just want to let me show some of this stuff. I mean, it's super pretty, all this, you know, it's just colors, purples, blues, greens, whites, yellows, reds, seeds, leaves, grasses, weeds. All right, gurus, do your thing. Show us what liquid can be like if words could really spring. And then I brought something to maybe take away. So I'll clean up everything except for obviously what I intend to leave here. But I got some obsidian. I'm gonna see what chance might bring to this interaction. Maybe try and read it like a cloud. I think obsidian can be good like that. So I'm gonna chip at it right here and see what shape, design, texture I create. Gotta find a rock first though. Good one. don't know, I got some sort of like teardrop thing kind of going right now. Which, you know, there's some sense of control with there. Looking for that lightning out of that thunder cloud, but I mean, there's a pretty good solid edge. It'd be cool if I could make it into a real teardrop. Kind of chip this section a little bit more and give it more cut up there. I don't know, I think it looks pretty good actually. You always got to know when to stop, especially with obsidian. There you go, black rain. Right there, just looking at that, almost like I've just drawn like drawn some rain, you know what I mean? Just with its contrast to the world around it. It's like an ink drop kind of thing. God's tear. Well, anyways, guys. It's kind of all she wrote for the moment. See you guys in the next one. Bye.